If you had asked me 2 months ago if I was going to the high school reunion, I would have laughed, taken a sip of my overpriced craft beer, and changed the subject. But I went. Why? Because of Sean. Sean fucking Brennan. I hadn't seen him since graduation day, but he'd somehow remained frozen in my mind, the way you remember a song from your childhood that still plays in the back of your head, even though you haven't heard it in a decade. He was that guy. Quarterback, class clown, the one who never studied but still passed, effortlessly charming in a way that made you resent him a little. And also, my best friend. We were inseparable back then. Everyone called us the twins that weren't twins. But the truth is, I spent most of senior year quietly, desperately in love with him. Not that I ever said anything. I wasn't out. He wasn't either. At least I didn't think so. And back in 2013, in a town like ours, that stuff still felt radioactive. So when he texted me out of nowhere, 2 months before the reunion, saying, "You better come, don't be lame," I went. And that's how I ended up back in the same stupid gym, where I once watched him get crowned prom king, while I clapped politely and tried not to look too bitter. It felt surreal walking in. The lights were too bright, the decorations were trying way too hard, and the bar was just a folding table with warm wine and cheap liquor. I recognized a few faces right away, people who had aged better than they had any right to, and then I saw him. Sean. He was talking to two people I didn't know, dressed in jeans and a button-down with the sleeves rolled up. His hair was shorter than I remembered, but that grin? Still the same. I must have been staring because he looked up, did a double take, and then lit up like it was Christmas. Tommy. Holy shit. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled me into a hug. Full arms, tight squeeze, like we hadn't spent a decade growing apart. "You look exactly the same," he said when we pulled back. "Like, it's creepy." "You look tired," I replied, because I didn't know how to say. "You look so good it actually hurts a little to look at you." He laughed, shoved my shoulder. Still a dick. Good to know. The night spiraled from there. We stuck together like no time had passed. Drinks, jokes, stories that got wilder the more drunk we got. Sean kept buying shots, even though I tried to cut him off after the 4th round. "You owe me," he slurred, leaning on the bar with one arm around my shoulder. "You ditched me for 10 years. "I moved to New York," I said, half laughing. "You stopped texting back." "That's a lie," he poked my chest. "I texted happy birthday every year." "You spelled my name wrong twice." "Still counts." We were a mess. A loud, leaning on each other, laughing too hard mess. At some point, someone suggested going to the after party at a hotel down the street. Sean looked at me, eyebrows raised. "You in?" I should have gone home. I should have gotten in my car and driven back to the Airbnb I'd booked on the edge of town. But I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "Let's go." The hotel was worse than I expected. Loud music, cheap vodka, and someone trying to play bartender out of a bathtub filled with ice and canned margaritas. Sean and I somehow ended up sitting on the carpeted floor in the hallway, a little away from the chaos, sharing a mini bottle of rum, like two kids who just discovered alcohol for the first time. He leaned his head back against the wall and turned toward me. "Hey, yeah, I missed you." Something about the way he said it. Not dramatic, not drunk, sloppy, just quiet. Made my chest tighten. "I missed you too." He didn't say anything for a while. Just looked at me, eyes darker in the low hallway light. "You ever think about how weird it is?" he asked. "That we were so close. And then just nothing?" I nodded. "I thought about reaching out," I said, "but I figured you moved on." "Yeah, but," he trailed off, blinking slow. "You were always my favorite person." I didn't know what to say. I just stared at him, heat rising in my face. Then he laughed, soft and tired, and rested his head on my shoulder. That's the last thing I remember. Not the elevator. Not the key card. Not how we got into that hotel room. Just that warmth against my shoulder. And then I woke up. The next morning, in a hotel bed. With Sean. Both of us shirtless. Me, blinking into the sunlight, heart hammering. And him, still asleep, one arm thrown across my waist like it belonged there. Waking up next to Sean Brennan wasn't even in my wildest fantasies. Because even in those, I usually woke up before anything actually happened. But this was real. My mouth was dry, my head pounding, and my skin still felt too warm. Sean was lying beside me, his dark hair messy, his chest rising and falling slowly. His hand, noticeably, was on my waist, not just grazing, actually there, palm heavy and fingers relaxed like it had been there for hours. I laid there frozen, staring at the ceiling, waiting for my brain to catch up. We were in a hotel room, a very beige, very standard room. One bed, sheets kicked off, clothes. My jeans were across the floor. My shirt was hanging off the corner of a chair. I could see Sean's pants halfway under the bed and his button-up tossed over the TV stand. I was wearing boxers, nothing else. So was he. Shit. The word slipped out before I could stop it, and immediately, Sean stirred. His arm tensed around me, and I felt his breath hitch as he blinked awake. Tom? He said it like he wasn't sure if he was dreaming or still drunk. I swallowed, hard. Hey. He pulled his hand away from my waist slowly, like he was trying to process where it was. Then he looked around. Then at me. His eyes widened, and I watched his realization settled in. Did we? He asked. I held up both hands. I don't know. I don't think so. We sat in silence for a second. Not awkward yet. Just pure confusion. I'm not wearing pants, Sean said deadpan. Neither am I. He nodded. Right. He rubbed his face with both hands, groaned into them, then peeked at me through his fingers. Did we do anything? I blinked. I don't remember anything. I remember us sitting in the hallway at the party. You were leaning on me. You said you missed me. He squinted at me. I said that? Yeah. Well, that part's true, he mumbled, and then looked immediately like he regretted saying it. I sat up a little too fast, winced at the nausea, then steadied myself. I don't know what happened, I said, but we're both basically naked. In bed. Together. Sean stared up at the ceiling, like maybe the answers were written there. Do you feel like we... No, I said quickly. I mean, my body doesn't feel like we did anything, if that makes sense. He glanced at me, his expression unreadable. Yeah, same. Then, more softly, but I don't hate that we ended up here. I looked at him. You don't? He turned his head to face me. Do you? My stomach flipped. No. We stayed like that for a few beats, just breathing, listening to the muffled sound of people talking in the hallway outside, the hum of the hotel's AC. I really don't know what's happening right now, I admitted. This is, so far from anything I expected this weekend. Sean laughed, a quiet chuckle. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hoping we'd talk again. Not, he waved vaguely at the bed. You were hoping we'd talk again? Yeah. He sat up then, slowly, and grabbed his shirt off the dresser. He didn't put it on right away, just held it in his hands and stared at it like it had answers. Listen, I didn't come to the reunion just for the drinks or the awkward look what I've done with my life convos, he said. I came because I saw your name on the RSVP list. I blinked. What? Sean looked up at me. His face was suddenly more serious than I'd seen in years. I wanted to see you again. Talk. Maybe, I don't know, clear the air? What air? He shrugged. The kind you don't notice until you're breathing it again. That made no sense, and also somehow made perfect sense. Sean, are you saying... I don't know what I'm saying, man, he interrupted, running a hand through his hair. I just know you were my best friend, and then we stopped talking, and it's been 10 years, and I still think about you more than I should. So yeah, when I saw your name, I said, fuck it, I'm going. The words knocked the breath out of me. You still think about me? Dude, you think I keep other guys' numbers saved for 10 years for fun? I laughed a little, stunned. You kept my number? Every year. Birthday text. Even when you ignored it. I didn't ignore it. I just didn't know what to say. Same. The room felt suddenly smaller. Or maybe just warmer. Sean looked at me again. Really looked. You remember that night before graduation, when we went up to the water tower? Of course. He hesitated. I almost kissed you that night. My pulse slammed against my ribs. What? I don't know why I didn't. Maybe I was scared. Maybe I thought I was reading things wrong. But I wanted to. I really did. I stared at him, my throat dry, my heart punching through my chest. I wanted you to, I whispered. He exhaled, like a sigh of years of tension leaving his chest. Well, that clears that up. We sat there in silence for a long time, our bodies still barely covered by the sheets, our clothes scattered, the morning light pouring in like it was spotlighting something sacred. Sean? Yeah? What do we do now? He looked at me, eyes clearer than I'd ever seen them. Well, first, we get coffee, maybe Advil, then we talk. For real this time. And after that, he smiled. Not the showy, cocky one he used to wear in high school. This one was smaller, realer. After that, maybe we see what happens if we don't wait another 10 years. The coffee place across the street from the hotel smelled like burnt espresso and bad decisions. It was packed with people who looked just as hungover as we were, all sunglasses indoors, all moving too slowly like gravity had been turned up overnight. Sean and I sat at a small round table near the window, knees almost touching because the place was cramped. He'd insisted on paying, even after I protested. Let me at least do one responsible thing today, he'd said, smirking. I watched him stir sugar into his coffee, still quiet in a way that felt intentional, not awkward silence. More like we were both afraid that if one of us said the wrong thing, whatever fragile understanding we'd stumbled into would shatter. So, I said finally, wrapping my hands around my cup, you almost kissed me. Sean looked up, one eyebrow raised. You're just gonna say it like that? Yeah, I replied. Figured we're past pretending. He let out a slow breath, then nodded. Yeah, I did. The honesty in his voice made my chest tighten. Not dramatic, not defensive, just plain. I remember that night really clearly, he continued. You were sitting on the edge of the water tower, legs dangling, talking about how you couldn't wait to get out of this town. You looked free. Terrified, but free. I smiled faintly. I was terrified. I knew that, he said. I think that's why I didn't do anything. I didn't want to complicate your life. I laughed quietly. Sean, my life was already complicated. Yeah, he admitted. Mine too. We sat there for a moment, watching condensation slide down our cups. Can I ask you something? He said. Anything. Were you out back then? I shook my head. Not really. I knew, but I didn't say it out loud. I figured if I just left town, it'd sort itself out. Did it? I shrugged. Eventually, but it took a while, and a lot of bad dates. He grinned. Same, actually. That surprised me. Same? Yeah, he said, leaning back in his chair. Turns out being confused doesn't magically disappear just because you move to a city with more gay bars. I blinked. Sean, are you saying... I'm saying I don't really like labels. He cut in, then softened. But I know I've liked you since we were 18. The words settled between us, heavy and warm all at once. You know, I said quietly, I spent years telling myself I'd imagined everything, that you were just friendly, that I was projecting. He shook his head. You weren't. That was it. That was the thing I didn't realize I'd needed to hear for a decade. When we left the cafe, The sun was higher now, too bright, reflecting off car windshields. We walked slowly back toward the hotel, neither of us in a rush to say goodbye. "So," Sean said, shoving his hands into his pockets, "what are you doing after today?" "I was planning to drive back to New York tonight." He stopped walking. "Oh," he said, not disappointed exactly, but close. "What?" "I was just thinking maybe we could hang out a bit more. Catch up without alcohol poisoning involved." I smiled. "You asking me on a date, Brennan?" He laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I mean, yeah, I guess I am." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at him. Really looked at him. The same guy who used to steal my fries, who knew exactly how to make me laugh when I was anxious, who once sat with me in silence for 3 hours because I didn't want to go home. "Okay," I said. His grin was instant and unguarded. "Yeah? Yeah." Back in the hotel room, we packed up in a comfortable, domestic kind of quiet. No rushing, no avoiding eye contact. When I grabbed my jacket, Sean hesitated. "Hey," he said. "Yeah?" "There's something I want to be clear about." I turned to face him. "Last night, this morning, whatever this is," he gestured vaguely between us. "I don't want it to be some drunk nostalgia thing. I don't want to wake up tomorrow and pretend it didn't matter." "I don't either," I said. He studied my face, searching for something, then nodded. "Good." At the door, there was a pause. That familiar, almost moment again. The kind that used to stretch between us all the time. This time, neither of us backed away. Sean stepped closer, slow enough that I could have stopped him. I didn't. His hand brushed my arm, tentative, like he was still asking permission. "Is this okay?" he murmured. I nodded. "Yeah." The kiss was gentle, no urgency, no proving anything. Just warm and steady and real, in a way that made my throat tighten. It felt like a conversation that had been waiting 10 years to finish. When we pulled back, Sean rested his forehead against mine and laughed softly. "Damn," he said. "We're really doing this, huh?" "Looks like it," I replied. We exchanged numbers again, even though neither of us had ever deleted them. Old habits died hard. As I walked to my car later, I glanced back once. Sean was still standing there, watching me go, hands in his pockets, smiling like he had something to look forward to. For the first time in a long time, so did I. I didn't drive back to New York that night. That wasn't the plan, but plans had already gone out the window the moment I woke up next to Sean. Instead, I texted my boss something vague about car trouble and extended my stay by one more night. It felt impulsive and reckless in the way only things that actually matter do. Sean texted me less than an hour after I left the hotel. "Sean, you still in town?" "Me? Yeah. Why?" "Sean, good. I'm outside your Airbnb." I stared at my phone, then at the half-packed bag on the floor. My heart started doing that stupid, hopeful thing again. When I opened the door, he was leaning against his car like a teenager in a bad rom-com, sunglasses on, coffee in hand. "You stalking me now?" I asked. "Absolutely," he said. "You cool with that?" I stepped aside. "Come in." We didn't rush anything. That was the strange part. No pressure. No awkward, what are we doing talk. We sat on opposite ends of the couch at first, talking about nothing important. His job, my apartment, mutual friends we'd lost track of. But there was an undercurrent to it all, like we were circling something fragile. At some point, Sean leaned back and said, "Can I ask something without it being weird?" I smiled. "We crossed, weird, about 12 hours ago." He chuckled. "Fair. Did you ever hate me? For disappearing?" The question caught me off guard. "No," I said honestly. "I was hurt. Confused. But I figured you were just doing what everyone else did. Moving on." He nodded slowly. I didn't move on very well. I glanced at him. "What do you mean?" "I dated," he said. "Had relationships. But there was always this thing in the back of my head, like I'd missed an exit on the highway and kept driving anyway." That hit closer than I expected. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Same." Silence settled between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Sean shifted closer, our knees touching this time. Neither of us pulled away. "You know what scares me?" he said. "What?" "That we're both different people now. And I don't want to ruin what we had by pretending we're still 18. I looked at him. Really looked at him. Lines at the edges of his eyes. A steadiness that hadn't been there before. "I don't want that either," I said. "But I also don't want to keep pretending that what we had didn't mean something." His hand rested on the couch between us, palm up. Not reaching, just there. I placed my hand in his. It felt absurdly right. That night, we cooked dinner together like it was the most natural thing in the world. We burned the garlic bread, laughed about it, ate standing up in the kitchen. At some point, music came on. A playlist Sean admitted he still listened to from high school. "You're kidding," I said as the song started. "Nope," he replied. "Peak nostalgia." We swayed a little, joking at first, until joking turned into something quieter. He was close enough that I could smell his cologne. Familiar. Comforting. "I should probably head out," he said eventually, though he didn't move. "You could stay," I said, my voice softer than I meant it to be. "If you want," he searched my face. "I want to. I just want to make sure we're not rushing." "We're not," I said. "We're catching up." That seemed to satisfy him. Later, lying side by side in bed, fully clothed this time, lights off, city noise drifting in, I stared at the ceiling, acutely aware of how close he was. "Tom?" he whispered. "Yeah? I don't know where this is going, but I know I don't want to lose you again." I turned onto my side, facing him. Even in the dark, I could make out the shape of his face. "Then don't," I said. He smiled, barely visible. His hand found mine again under the blanket. For the first time since high school, sleep came easily. The morning after Sean stayed over felt dangerously normal. I woke up first, sunlight leaking through the cheap blinds of the Airbnb, the room smelling faintly like coffee grounds and laundry detergent. For a second, I forgot where I was, forgot the reunion, the hotel, the night that cracked everything open. Then I rolled slightly and saw him. Sean was still asleep, on his side, one arm flung across the pillow where my head had been. His face was relaxed in a way I'd never really seen before. No guarded grin, no performative confidence. Just him. And something in my chest tightened. I slipped out of bed quietly and went to make coffee, moving on autopilot. My brain kept replaying the last 24 hours, like it was checking for inconsistencies, like it was waiting for the other shoe to drop. He came out a few minutes later, hair a mess, wearing the same t-shirt from the night before. "Morning," he said, voice rough. "Hey," I replied, handing him a mug. He took it, our fingers brushing, and smiled. Small, sleepy, genuine. "So," he said, leaning against the counter, "still glad you stayed?" I nodded. "Yeah. You?" "Yeah," he said without hesitation. "Very." We sat at the little kitchen table, knees touching again, talking about logistics. When I had to head back, when he was free next, practical stuff, necessary stuff. But underneath it, there was this unspoken awareness that whatever this was, it wasn't going to be simple. "You live in New York," Sean said eventually. "I'm still here." "For now," I said. "I travel a lot. Remote job has its perks." He nodded slowly. "I'm not great at long distance." I appreciated the honesty. "Neither am I." Silence settled, not uncomfortable, but thoughtful. "I don't want to make promises we can't keep," he said, "but I also don't want to pretend this is nothing." I looked at him. "We don't have to decide everything right now," he smiled at that. "You've always been better at pacing than me." That afternoon, he walked me to my car. We stood there for a moment, neither of us eager to break the bubble. "So," he said, rocking back on his heels. "When do I see you again?" I smiled. "You asking me already?" "Absolutely." I checked my phone. "I'll be back in 2 weeks. Work thing." "I could stay longer." Sean's grin was immediate. "Yeah?" "Yeah." He stepped closer, hesitated, just a beat, then kissed me. Brief. Easy, like it belonged there. No audience. No pressure. Text me when you get home, he said. I will. The drive back felt different. Lighter. Like something unresolved had finally been acknowledged instead of buried. We texted constantly that first week. Nothing dramatic. Just small things. Pictures of our lunches, sarcastic commentary on bad TV, random memories from high school surfacing out of nowhere. Sean, remember when you ditched football practice to help me study for Chem Me? You mean when you failed anyway, Sean. Rude, but fair. It felt easy. And that scared me more than if it hadn't. When I came back 2 weeks later, Sean picked me up from the train station. He didn't say much when he saw me, just smiled and pulled me into a hug that lingered longer than it needed to. Missed you, he said quietly. Yeah, I admitted. Me too. That weekend wasn't dramatic. No declarations, no grand gestures. We cooked, watched dumb movies, walked through the old parts of town we used to avoid. It felt like building something from the ground up instead of trying to recreate the past. Sunday night, lying on his couch with my head on his chest, I asked the question I'd been circling for days. What are we doing? Sean didn't tense. That alone felt like progress. I think, he said slowly, we're seeing where this goes, without pretending it's high school, without pretending it's nothing. And if it gets complicated, he looked down at me. It already is. I laughed softly. Yeah, it is. But complicated doesn't mean bad, he added. Just means it matters. That night, when I left again, it didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like to be continued. The third visit was the one that made it impossible to pretend this was casual. It wasn't planned. Sean texted me late on a Wednesday night. Not drunk, not dramatic, just honest in a way that caught me off guard. Sean, long day. Could really use you here. Me, I can be on a train tomorrow morning. There was a pause. Then, Sean, you don't have to do that. Me, I know, I want to. I showed up Friday afternoon, bag slung over my shoulder, half expecting that spark to feel different this time. Like maybe distance had cooled it. Like maybe we'd used up whatever magic the reunion had given us. Instead, when he opened the door, all of that doubt evaporated. He didn't even say hi, just pulled me into him, forehead pressed to my shoulder, breathing me in like he needed proof I was actually there. Hey, I said softly. Hey, he replied, voice low. Thanks for coming. That night was quieter than the others. We ordered takeout, sat cross-legged on the floor, talked about work stress and money and all the boring adult things that somehow felt intimate when shared this way. Later, stretched out on the couch, Sean stared at the ceiling for a long time before speaking. Can I admit something? Always. I'm scared. That surprised me. Of what? He turned his head to look at me. Of this being real. I didn't joke, didn't deflect, just listened. I've done the casual thing, he continued. I've done the don't think about tomorrow thing. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like something I could screw up if I'm not careful. I shifted closer. You don't have to have it all figured out. I know, he said, but I don't want to be the reason this ends badly. That landed heavy. Not because it scared me, but because it meant he cared. You're not the only one with something to lose, I said. I wouldn't be here if I thought this didn't matter. He exhaled slowly, then nodded. That was the night we crossed an invisible line. Not physically. That part came later, and quietly, without urgency, but emotionally. It was the first time we stopped dancing around what this was and let it settle into the space between us. After we lay there tangled together, lights off, city humming outside the windows. This is different, Sean murmured. Yeah, I agreed. It is. Weeks passed, then months. It wasn't perfect. We argued, gently, but honestly, about schedules, about expectations, about how much space was healthy versus how much felt like distance creeping back in. Once, after a particularly long stretch apart, Sean snapped over something stupid. Dishes, of all things. "You disappear for weeks and then act like everything's fine," he said, frustration sharp in his voice. I bristled. "I don't disappear. I'm working." "I know," he said, running a hand through his hair. Fuck, I hate that I don't get to see you when I need you." That was new. Someone needing me. Saying it out loud. We talked it through. Always did. No slammed doors, no silent treatments, just uncomfortable honesty. The first time he met my friends in New York, he was nervous in a way that made him endearing. He stuck close to me, hand on my back, grounding himself. Later, walking back to my apartment, he said, "They like you." I laughed. "They already liked me. They like you." He smiled, relief softening his face. And then came the moment I didn't expect to hit me as hard as it did. We were back in our hometown again, walking past the high school on a quiet Sunday morning. The building looked smaller than I remembered, less intimidating. Sean stopped suddenly. "This is where it started, isn't it?" he said. I nodded. "Yeah." He took my hand, openly, without hesitation, and squeezed it. "I'm glad we didn't miss it this time." I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt something settle in my chest. Something steady. "I am too," I said. That night, lying beside him, I realized I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop anymore. I wasn't bracing for the ending. I was thinking about next month, and the month after that, and for the first time, the future didn't feel like something I had to face alone. The moment I knew this wasn't temporary came on a completely ordinary Tuesday. No big argument, no dramatic confession. Just Sean, standing in my kitchen in New York, barefoot, reading the back of a cereal box like it held the secrets of the universe. "You know this says family size," he said. "But I don't think they're legally defining family." I laughed from the sink. "I think you're overthinking Cheerios." "Or," he said, glancing over at me, "I'm underthinking everything else." That was how it worked with us. The heavy stuff crept in through the cracks of normal life. He'd been staying with me more often lately. Long weekends turned into full weeks. A drawer in my dresser became his, without either of us announcing it. His toothbrush showed up next to mine. My friends stopped asking when he was leaving. One night, lying in bed, with the window cracked open to let in city noise, Sean said quietly, "I got offered a job." I rolled onto my side. "Here?" He nodded. "Yeah, same company. Different branch." My heart skipped. "That's huge." "I haven't said yes," he added quickly. "Not yet." "Why not?" He looked at me, serious now. "Because I don't want to pretend this isn't a factor." That sentence carried weight. It wasn't romanticized. It wasn't dramatic. It was adult and terrifying and real. "I don't want you making choices for me," I said carefully. "I'm not," he replied. "I want to make them with you." Silence stretched between us, thick with possibility. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Me too." "But I don't want to keep doing this halfway," I said. "I don't want to keep pretending we're just visiting each other." Sean reached for my hand, squeezing it. "Neither do I." We talked for hours that night. About fears we hadn't named yet. About past relationships. About what moving forward actually meant. No promises we couldn't keep. No fairy tale guarantees. Just honesty. He accepted the job a week later. Not because of me. But not despite me either. When he moved in, it wasn't cinematic. Boxes everywhere. Arguments about where the couch should go. A minor fight over laundry that ended with both of us laughing at how ridiculous it was. One night, months later, we went back to our hometown for a friend's wedding. After the reception, a little drunk but nowhere near like that reunion night, we walked past the high school again. The building was dark now. Quiet. Sean squeezed my hand. Funny how one night can reroute your entire life. Yeah, I said. Especially when you don't even remember most of it. He laughed. Still mad we didn't cross the line that night? I rolled my eyes. We were idiots. We were, he agreed. Then softer. But we figured it out. We stood there for a moment, the past finally feeling like something behind us instead of something unfinished. Later, back at the hotel, Sean lay beside me, one arm around my waist, thumb tracing slow circles like he'd done 1,000 times now. You ever think about what would have happened if we had kissed back then, he asked. Sometimes, I admitted. But I don't think we were ready, he nodded. Yeah, I think we needed to become ourselves first. I turned toward him, pressing my forehead to his. I'm glad it was you. His smile was quiet, certain. Me too. The reunion had started it. The alcohol, the nostalgia, the accident of waking up in the same bed. But what followed? That was a choice. One we kept making every day, long after the hangover faded.